We did a drive-by for the world's largest ball of twine in Copper City, fastest stop ever, and I kept on going. Let's see. I think we made 12 stops we calculated today. Our average yield was 57.2, which seemed pretty good. We did find one, an 18.8 was our low one, a couple of looser fields, and we had one at 85. The bulk of them, I want to say, were in the 40s, 50s to 60s, I'd say. First couple fields, wet fields, we saw just a ton of strike rust, and we thought that, well, that's going to be the theme of the day, but it wasn't as bad as those first fields we saw around Manhattan itself. All the crops, most of the fields seem to have plenty of moisture, and that's about it. We had lunch in Osborne, Kansas. I forgot the name of the restaurant, but it was a very nice lunch. That's it. Gary Milashevsky, did I screw anything up? Did I miss anything?
You guys did all the work. I slept.
Well, Rich will get the real one out.
Okay, I'm Rich Kendrick, Great Plains Analytical Lab. David Shim was our driver, and had Harry Tharpa also. Miller Milling. We made 13 stops. We had an average calculated yield of 66. Really good. Saw a lot of really good fields. Our lowest was 31. Highest was actually 105. That was like our first stop. So I don't know if we were really excited for the first tour since in 2 years. We average eyeball yield we thought was a little bit lower, was probably around 58, but compared to last year or 2 years ago when the average was 41.5. So overall, it really looked good. We thought it was 5 to 7 weeks away. We also stopped at the Copper City Ball of Twine. Harry had never seen the ball of twine before, so he was impressed. Got our picture taken. So it should be on Twitter sometime. We also stopped by Chris Tanner's field. He showed us one of his fields and had some really good looking wheat. He was trying to lowball us a little bit on the yield potential. But it looked really good. So I think they got a little bourbon riding on what the yield finally ends up at. So it looked good. So it's a lot of wheat.
Mark Nelson, Kansas Farm Bureau. I don't have much to add. Average calculated yield for me on 12 stops was 51. Highest was 90.3. Lowest was 28.9. And yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. Obviously, disease pressure was way higher early, and it just got cleaner as we went across the state. Let's see here. As far as harvest dates, probably 30 days away. In that Geary County, those first few stops, probably 45 days as you get in this part of the world. But overall, pretty good crops. A lot of moisture.
Hey, Ryan Fitz with Inspire Brands out of Atlanta. Yeah, not a lot to add. I think the word of the day for us is variability. I mean, as we moved out west, I think the best county that we kind of labeled was Osborne. We saw 85, 90 yields there. And then probably the worst county that we saw was where that Sheridan and here in Colby. We just saw a lot more variability as far as the stands were and where they were at in their stages. As far as disease goes, we didn't see a whole lot of disease as we crossed across the state today. And we also stopped at twine as well. So
added to twine. We put twine on twine.
Say that again. We added to twine. Oh, we added twine as well. So that's an honor. Yeah, exactly.
My first.
Oh, and our average yield was 50.4.
Gary, I had a complaint from a farmer that someone in your car left a yardstick in the field.
We know who did that, Lane.
No, I have none.
Sorry, Lane.
Spare yardsticks back in the corner here.
I think they compost pretty well. Yellow wrap though.
Everybody, I'm Max with Earthworm out of Columbus, Ohio. I was in a car with Frazier and with Aaron as well, and we had a great day. In the first half, we saw more mature wheat with really nice heads on it. Our average calculated yield was 56 over 11 stops. Had a lowest yield of 36.9, the highest yield of 72. Average eyeball yield was between 55 and 60. compared to last year's, which was 47, and generally between 5 and 8 weeks to harvest from here across the state. Low rust, where we did see rust, we saw signs of spraying generally. We saw a couple of planes out today, so some people taking action against it. Obviously really wet, doesn't need to be stated. Lots of beneficial insects, did you notice today? Lots of ladybugs out there, lots of ladybug larvae hanging out, which is a good sign, especially in the early parts of the state. And then quite a bit of infield variability too, like some of the others have said, more so when we got to the second half, but overall a good day. We stopped at also the Garden of Eden, which was a nice sort of oddball step, got to see a mummy. I wasn't expecting when I came out here, so he's definitely seen a good day. He's not so
Yeah.
Brent Schaffner, Healthy Food Ingredients. I was also on yellow. So we came down from Manhattan early on, is where we saw more stripe rust. Sort of dissipated as we moved west. A lot of our early, we made a lot of stops early, which probably boosted our yield a little bit. Of course, it went down as we went west, generally speaking. We had a high of 97.5 and a low of 23. So our calculated average was 66.95. Eyeball average, I'm thinking 58, 59, most likely. But again, kind of heavier on the eastern side, but we started running out of time and had to make fewer stops as we went. We made 12 stops total. Yeah, I guess past that, it's pretty much a lot of the same, a lot of variability. We did come into some of that later planted wheat. And so we had to use the old formula on some of our calculations, so we'll see how accurate that ends up being. About it. Oh, also stopped at the Garden of Eden and the toilet bowl part, whatever that's called.
Andrew Bluewell, Bayer Crop Science, yellow route as well. Kind of the same story. First 4 fields where we were seeing the stripe rust, some powdery mildew. First field we calculated at 84, but stripe rust pressure and powdery mildew was pretty heavy, so that yield would go down significantly if it wasn't sprayed. Highest yield of 94, lowest yield of 21 across that route with an average of 56. So kind of that same story that everybody's been given. So kind of that same eyeball look as well. And then they stopped at St. Joseph Catholic Church in DeMar, Kansas.
Beautiful church. You can see the corpse at the Garden of Eden for discount right now. It's only $7 right now. It's a pretty good deal. Black route. Blue next, right? Blue.
So yeah, we took the blue route. We started Manhattan.
Who are you?
Oh, sorry. Josh Longton from Miller Milling. Oh, trademark right there. So went down south, then headed back up north. Overall, we made 11 stops. We had an average yield of 55.6 with a max of 69.5 and a minimum of 35.7. Overall, we saw good wheat with pretty few issues overall. Issues that we did see, we don't think will have a major impact on the crop production. Most of what we saw was in the flowering stage, some was in the boot and heading, and we did run into a couple of sprayed fields and one bad one with some hail and creep damage. So we did see a few aphids and a little bit of rust along the way as well. So.
Josh, RJ O'Brien, the commercial grain group. The route that we took pretty much a straight shot Colby, kind of veered down here, looks like. Went directly up through Hayes, kind of over there. Further kind of up the church. That church is beautiful, by the way. It's fantastic church.
Did you go inside?
Went inside. It was not what I was expecting for that part of Kansas. It's like a little mini Vatican. It's got French glass imported from 1943, so it's a beautiful church.
The bishop was there as well.
Oh, he
The
was?
bishop actually blessed our journey out to Colby, and he also blessed the price.
Did he turn on the lights for you? Because we couldn't figure out how to turn on the lights.
No, couldn't find the light switch either. So
They were outside waiting for us.
yeah. But yeah, very, very beautiful place. Kind of add what he was saying, the journey out there, not really a whole lot of problems with any of the crops. There was some stripe damage throughout the way, some stripe rust, but not really anything to write home about. There was nothing that really stood out. Our yardsticks pretty much maxed out the entire time. There were maybe one or two fields here and there that had some issues with the height of that crop. But for the most part, the numbers, we had 35 as the low, 73 as the high, and a 61.9 average. So again, pretty phenomenal crop. But yeah, kind of zigzagged out there. We actually stopped at a flour mill, so kind of learned the whole process of how you actually use this stuff in the end. I've never been on a crop tour before, so this is definitely a kind of an eye opener for me to kind of go out there and see all this stuff in person. But the flour mill, very cool. If you guys are kind of taking that route tomorrow, maybe you end up driving by it. But
Where's the mill?
Is it Stafford County? Is that where it is?
Lynnsburg, there you go. So Dave was our driver. But overall, it was pretty good numbers. I don't think there's anything else to add to it. Saw the ladybugs, the aphids, not really major problem.
Well, the only thing I'd add, and I'd ask for some guidance from the producers and the experts, but I'm a fan of tall crops. And when I see the crop growing past its target, that gets me excited. And I like the look of the tall wheat in the field and the way it blows. Isn't this a tall crop?
Burnt down crops don't make wheat.
So you don't relate the tallness to anything? I mean, the best crops I've ever seen have been tall.
Yeah.
And this, we saw tall wheat all day today. I thought that was a really good sign.
Dave, was there,
So much cool that it's growing through that.
was there any one field that we saw where it was where it didn't actually max out?
And just like one thing interesting from a variety development perspective, and there's most of the, if you compare variety heights, usually out here in western Kansas, there's a tendency of using taller varieties than in central Kansas. I think it's more maybe related to the drought as well. Right here, they need that residue, and so there's a tendency of using taller varieties out here in the west as compared to some varieties out in the central part of the state, where if they're too tall naturally, they might launch, right, because of the rainfall and everything.
But they sure are pretty to walk through. And then my other question has to do with rye. I continue to see more rye fields. I mean, like planted rye fields. I assume those are cover crops. That what, they're gonna be rolled and planted soybeans in them, or what's gonna happen?
A little bit of everything. Some of it's hay, a lot of it will be rolled, some of it will be sprayed out, chemically chlorinated. So why is that happening? Rye is a relatively cheap, easy to establish cover crop that grows a lot of biomass for not much cost. And so it has good weed suppression abilities. That's what route you got. I mean, we're seeing more and more specifically down like that Great Bend area, Barton County, down into Stafford County. We're seeing more of it down there. It's a weed management tool for guys with soybeans and sorghum in rotation.
And how about we saw an oat pea field? Is that again just for biomass or soil conditions?
That's probably going to feed. That's probably going to hay.
Because the pea component of it would help increase the feed value, the protein portion of that. So the OP mix, that would be a lot of, I would say mostly going to hay, feeding cows.
And the lagoon will fix that.
Well, it looked like it was only a plant every couple of feet. It wasn't like the peas.
Peas might not have come up very well.
On those thoughts tomorrow, when you get further south, you're going to see some fields of wheat that look like they've been cut. And what that is, that's a triticale, and they green chop it for silage. And typically it'll be on irrigated ground. And then as soon as they green chop it, then they turn around, come in and plant some.
Okay. One more route, black route.
Josh Reasoner, AD of Miller.
We were on the black route, went down to Abilene and then went south from there. We did 12 stops. I rode with Ernie Minton and Marty Draper. It was great to ride with these guys, very knowledgeable about the crop, and it was really nice to pick their brain about it. Like I said, 12 stops. Our average was 73.4. Our low was 38.4, and our high, I don't know if this Rich mentioned it, our high was our very first one at 124.8. Could have been excitement, but it was also really full and lush, and it looked great. Various diseases like everybody's been seeing throughout the day, stripe rust, some wheat streak mosaic. We didn't make any stop. Well, we stopped for lunch in Great Bend at the Handlebar Grill, which I thought was a little on the nose for Dean Minton. So that was our only stop. We didn't see the tourist destinations, but.
Levi Hall, again, I'm with the Independent Cooperative over in Northwest North Dakota. I've spent the first 10 years of my career bouncing around out in the country working at grain elevators. So really excited to come along on this tour. First of all, we were on the black route. We came over to Abilene and down. I think Amy was chomping at the bit at about Manhattan Airport to pull over and start looking at fields. But we made it over to Abilene and we saw some phenomenal stuff right away. We saw really big lush heads. That's where we saw some of our largest yields. We ended up, I think I grabbed the wrong sheet from Amy, but our average yield was 69, and our high end was around 85. Low end was 49, which we felt was fairly conservative. It was one of the fields that we talked about earlier, corn stock. We saw a lot of variability. Some of it was already starting to flower. Some of it was still in boot stage. So just extremely variable and really tough to gauge. I would say, if anything, we felt pretty confident that that was going to push at least 60 bushel. The stand really was fantastic. So as we came south of Abilene and came back over to the west towards Nest City, we kind of expected the crop to start falling off a little bit, and it just didn't happen, which in my 10 years out in the country was pretty phenomenal to see that kind of uniformity throughout. We came up north and about 10 miles south of Hill City, we started to see a little bit more variability, a little bit rollier ground, more so hillside. And then as we came along 24, we again expected the yields to really start dropping, and we actually ended up with a field that Amy started to panic, thinking that we were going to be the only ones close to 70 bushel. And so we calculated that one at about 85 as well, out here close to town. So we saw on the very low end 50, but we saw a lot of 80s or 60s. It felt like we didn't see much 70s.
All right, thanks everybody. Great job of reports. Was a really good day. Tomorrow's a little bit of a longer day, and I think we're going to see a little bit more variability, so it should be interesting tomorrow. Dave is currently passing out the report sheet from day one, and we'll walk you through those numbers here in a bit. It's not going to surprise anybody. This number is high, real high.
So is that what these numbers are here? These were also first days?
Yeah, so to look at your, if you look at these sheets, you know, the middle there, how many purple routes we had in the green and the average for each route and our route average, which goes into our computer. And then we take a simple average of those colors, and that's what that number is in the bold square at the bottom right, which says day one average 59.2. If you want to get some previous information, last year, of course, we didn't have a tour. So if you go back to 2019 on the right side, it was 46.9, 2018, 38.2. The number of stops is in there. So this is a comparison. We tend to run, I can assure you, we run the same routes every year. We use the same kind of formulas, and this is what it came out this year.
So just reading this for the people online here. So we made a total of 171 stops today. That's not normal, but we didn't have a normal size group, but I think you guys did a great job in getting that number of stops in. The day one average is 59.2 bushels an acre. That compares to 46.9 in 2019, and this is the biggest number through at least 2011. Might be the biggest day one number ever on the tour. Disclaimer, we told you this the first night. This is a snapshot of this wheat crop at this point in time. Most of what can happen to this crop between now and harvest is bad. But this number is hard to ignore. We counted heads today for most of that, and that makes the number that much more accurate than if you're counting tillers. So it was a big day. Any questions about the report on here? We'll have this type of report the next 3 nights. We'll show you the day 2 average and the running average for the crop. Any questions or comments from our experts or anybody in the crowd? Sit tight here for a second. We'll do the driver thing, and when we're done, dinner's going to be served right next door here behind the curtains. I think Dave will hand out drink tickets on your way out, so make sure you get those if you want. You got any driver changes or?
No, and,
So you've got a day 2 sheet inside your folder.
so we're gonna break here for dinner and be done, and we can continue the conversations, but please